Devaya. So we're reading from Canto 10, chapter 28, and text number 1. Shri Badarayanir Uvacha Ekadasyam Nirahara Samabhyarchya Janardanam Snatu Nandastu Kalindyam Dvadasyam Jalam Avishat. So I'll do the synonyms in the translation. Oh, actually, no, I'll do the synonyms and for the next verse because that's the verse with the purport. Translation: Shri Badarayani said, having worshipped Lord Janardan and fasted on the Ekadashi day, Nanda Maharaj entered the water of the Kalindi on the Dwadasi to take his bath. So the next verse, Tam grihi tvanayat prityo varunasyasuro ntikam avagya asuram velam pravishtam udakam nishi. I'll read the synonyms. Tam, him, gritva, seizing, anayat, brought, britya, a servant, varunasya, of Varuna, the lord of the sea, asura, demon, antikam, to the presence of his master, avagya, one who had disregarded, asurim, the inauspicious, velam, time, pravishtam, having entered, udakam, the water, nishi, during the night. Translation: because Nanda Maharaj entered the water in the dark of night, disregarding that the time was inauspicious, a demoniac servant of Varuna seized him and brought him to his master. Purport: Nanda Maharaj was intent on breaking his fast during the Dwadashi day, of which there remained only a few minutes. Thus he entered the water to bathe at an inauspicious time before the first dawn light. The servant of Varuna who arrested Nanda Maharaj is stated here to be an asura or demon for obvious reasons. First, the servant was foolishly ignorant of Nanda Maharaj's position as the pastime father of the supreme absolute truth. Also, Nanda Maharaj's intention was to carry out the injunctions of scripture. Therefore, Varuna's servant should not have arrested Nanda on the technical grounds that he bathed in the Yamuna at an inauspicious time. Later in this chapter, Varuna himself will say, Ajanata mamakena mudhena. This was done by my ignorant servant who is a fool. This foolish servant did not understand the position of Krishna or Nanda Maharaj or devotional service to the Lord. In conclusion, it is clear that Lord Krishna wanted to give his personal audience to Varuna and simultaneously accomplish other didactic purposes. Thus, this wonderful pastime will now unfold. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Mena Bhutle Swam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaparantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namoste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sudhe Devi Panamami Haripriya Panchakalpatarubhyashta Kripasindhubhyev cha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is the first verse of this chapter 28, where Nanda Maharaj is captured by Varuna. So an overview on this chapter is that after the Govardhan Hill pastime, which was 7 days, then the next day Indra came to ask for forgiveness from Krishna. And there's that whole chapter about, or that whole text about where he asked Krishna for forgiveness. And then the next day, was Ekadashi, where Nanda Maharaj fasted for Ekadashi. And then the day after Ekadashi was Dwadasi, the 12th. So on that day, he went to go bathe in the river Kalindi, which is another name for the Yamuna. And he went in there too early. So there are times for different things. Just as you see on the calendar, or like if you have the Bhakti Center calendar, you'll see that there is the fast breaking time, right? So there is an actual time, the Parana time, which is the fast breaking time, that you have to actually conclude your fast. And so there's different indications in the Shastra that this should be done. One was also the pastime of Ambarish Maharaj, where Ambarish Maharaj had to break his fast at a certain time, and but he actually didn't want to offend, or he didn't want to disclude Durvasa Muni, who had gone. He had gone somewhere, or Ambarish Maharaj had gone somewhere, but they were not together at the time. And so Durvasa Muni got angry because Ambarish Maharaj had taken a little bit of water, which is considered breaking and not breaking his fast. But anyways, that's besides the point. That's an indication. And this verse is also an indication that should be followed. This fast breaking time should be followed, because he found it very important that he had to, break his fast at a certain time and bathe at a certain time in the river. So he went in there too early, and Varuna, who is he's the god of the demigod of the ocean, his servants came and arrested Nanda Maharaj because he had come in at the inauspicious time, and that was considered an offense. So they captured Nanda Maharaj, and they arrested him, and they took him away. And so those who were bathing along with Nanda Maharaj, they cried out for Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada actually gives a commentary in the Krishna book on this verse. And so I wanted to highlight a few themes that I found in his commentary on this verse. And the first one that I wanted to highlight was fearlessness. So, as you know, in the verse and in the story, the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they constantly cried out to Krishna whenever there was trouble, as is illustrated in this pastime, that when Nanda Maharaj was arrested, the inhabitants of Vrindavan cried out to Krishna. Krishna and Balaram came. They went down into the kingdom. Actually, Varuna has a kingdom in the ocean. They came, and they came to retrieve their father. Varuna was very apologetic, as is said in this text. He said, "This was done by my ignorant servant who is a fool." He was very apologetic. He actually worshipped Krishna. He actually offered prayers to Krishna. And then they took Nanda Maharaj back. And after they took him back, Krishna basically showed the cowherd men and Nanda Maharaj the spiritual kingdom. He gave them some indication of the spiritual world. It's described later in the chapter. So fearlessness, going back to fearlessness, that the inhabitants of Vrindavan always cried out to Krishna for help whenever there was something wrong, or they were in any kind of danger. This is indicated in other pastimes as well. Govardhan Hill pastime, when Indra had become angry with them and sent down torrents of rain, Samvartika clouds. What did the residents of Vrindavan do? They cried out to Krishna as their protector. Another example, when the forest fire came to devour the cowherd boys, what did they do? They called out to Krishna. So anyways, the point is that Krishna was always seen as someone who was always there for them, was always present in their life. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his commentary on Sharanagati is Bhaktivinoda Thakur is one of our acharyas. So in the disciplic succession, you'll see the third picture, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who's an amazing personality. And he gave a commentary on a verse in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is called which we know as the verse of Sharanagati. So that verse, I'll read the translation, is that accepting everything favorable in devotion to Krishna. So these are the different limbs of Sharanagati. Accepting everything favorable for devotion to Krishna, rejecting everything unfavorable to devotion to Krishna, being confident that Krishna will grant his protection, embracing Krishna's guardianship, fully offering oneself to Krishna, and realizing one's lamentable lowliness are the 6 limbs of Sharanagati. I wanted to hone in on the 2 that go, Krishna will grant his protection and embracing Krishna's guardianship. So these are very important in the context of fearlessness. So faith that Krishna will assuredly grant his protection. This is a quality that the residents of Vrindavan had to its fullest extent. That when no matter what happened, they have faith that Krishna will assuredly grant his protection. Now, these are aspects of surrender that we should strive to have as well. In my own life, I think that whenever I feel fearful, I think, when has Krishna not been there for me? Of course, I went through different trials and tribulations, and it's not that Krishna is going to take all those away and you won't go through any kind of hardships. But it's that, one, did I feel his presence in my life? Yes, I did. And secondly, did he give me the strength to go through those tribulations? And yes, he did, always. And that is where I think, okay, I have maybe a drop of that faith that Krishna will assuredly grant his protection. And again, this is really represented so wonderfully by the residents of Vrindavan. And the second one is called Goptritve Varnam. That's the Sanskrit, embracing the Lord's guardianship. Oh, before that, I wanted to share Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually writes in the Sharanagati. Actually, not about the protection part, but this is about the guardianship, embracing the Lord's guardianship. This is from his text, the Sharanagati, where he's basically, he's kind of addressing he's addressing Krishna, and he's also addressing the reader. So listen to this really carefully. This is really nice. Within my mind, I've always been anxious for the maintenance of my wife and children, my own body and relatives. How will I earn money? How will I acquire fame? How will I arrange the marriages of my sons and daughters? Now, through self-surrender, I have been relieved of all anxiety. O Lord, surely you will provide for all the maintenance of your own household. Recognizing me as your own servant, you will certainly maintain me. While rendering devotional service unto you, I feel the greatest happiness. So he's basically saying that Krishna, actually nothing is mine. Everything is yours. I am your servant. These wife, these children, you have entrusted them to me. They're actually yours. So you will also maintain them and recognize me as my servant, and you will maintain me as well. And how does he think of himself as a servant? He's performing devotional service to Krishna. So he feels this type of, the Lord is my guardian. So we should also have this conception and this aspiration to think that, yes, the Lord is also my guardian. He's also my maintainer, right? And again, the residents of Vrindavan, they also think Krishna is our maintainer. Govardhan Hill pastime again. Govardhan Hill is seen as Krishna, and he's maintainer of the cows and maintainer and the cows are the main base of you could say the economy of Vrindavan, because from the cows come so many things. Anyway, that's a side point. I also wanted to talk a little bit about there's fearlessness, but there's also fear. So where does that fear come from? So there's a verse in the 11th canto. It's quite a famous verse. It's 11-37. It goes, Bhayam dvitya abhivinesh tasyat, ishare petasya viparyo smriti, tanmaya to buddha avajetam bhakte kiyesham gurudeva tatma. So I wanted to focus on that first line, Bhayam dvitya abhinivesha tasyat. Bhayam means fear. Dvitya means when we think something is other than the Lord, when there's something different, when there's a duality. Abhiniveshita means absorption. So when absorbed in something that we think is not part of the Lord, then that's when fear arises. So let me just read the translation because it explains it really nicely. Fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the external, illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the potency for illusion called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, whom he should accept as his worshipable deity in his very life and soul. Yeah, so as I was saying, this fearful condition is caused by us thinking that we are this body and that everything here is mine and everything is here for me to enjoy. So this illusory condition, which is called Maya, that which is not, as Srila Prabhupada always said, this is what causes this bewildering, fearful condition. Another thing about fearlessness from the Bhagavad Gita is that, where is that addressed? In the 16th chapter, in the first verse, Krishna talks a little bit about the different qualities. And he says, fearlessness is the first quality of godliness. Fearlessness is the first quality of godliness. Why is that? It's because when someone understands that they are not in control of anything, but that Krishna is the controller. Krishna is present in one's life. That's where fearlessness comes from. To be fearful means that we are trying to control things, but when reality we don't have much control. Like in this world, people are always after money. People are always after fame or lording over things, as Srila Prabhupada said. But actually, how much control do we have? Not much. When we realize it, we don't have much control. But when we understand as devotees that Krishna is always present with us, when we forget that Krishna is not present, that's when we try to control things. But when we understand Krishna is always present, is when we have the feeling by devotional service, when we understand Krishna's presence and we feel Krishna's presence, is when we become fearless. Usually when we think that he's absent is when we become fearful. And we look for external things to give us that kind of security in our life, right? So how is that fearlessness gained? Is through devotional service. The process of devotional service, starting with Shravanam, with hearing, daily hearing of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, hearing from sadhus. This is what will give us the inspiration and the conception of Krishna always being present in our life. But it's always easy to forget that. I mean, in my own life, if I have a job, if I'm working on something really intently, and then I'm very much absorbed in that, then when I get out of that, I think, oh my goodness, for that moment, I did forget Krishna. For those moments, I did forget Krishna. And then I remind myself again, okay, why am I doing all this? I'll bring that up to my last theme, which I wanted to talk about. But anyway, I think the point there of fearlessness is clear. The second point that came out in Srila Prabhupada's purport in the Krishna book on this pastime is that Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda do not care that Krishna is God. Because why is that relevant? So in the text, let me read a part of the text to kind of give you context here. Okay. Actually, although Krishna was acting so wonderfully, Maharaj Nanda and Mother Yashoda could not think of him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Instead, they always accepted him as their beloved child. Thus, Nanda Maharaj did not accept the fact that Varuna had worshipped Krishna because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rather, he took it that because Krishna was a wonderful child, he had been respected, even by Varuna. So Nanda Maharaj didn't think, oh, Varuna, welcomed Krishna and worshipped him because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was thinking he did that because Krishna is so wonderful, right? How wonderful is Krishna? The friends of Nanda Maharaj, all the coward men, became eager to know if Krishna was actually the Supreme Personality and if he was going to give them all salvation. When they were all thus consulting amongst themselves, Krishna understood their minds, and in order to assure them of their destiny in the spiritual kingdom, he showed them the spiritual sky. That's what I mentioned earlier, that he showed them the spiritual world. Generally, ordinary persons are engaged simply in working hard in the material world, and they have no information that there is another kingdom or another sky, which is known as the spiritual sky, where life is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, a person returning to the spiritual sky never returns to this material world of death and suffering. So the second point in my 3 points is that the residents of Vrindavan, and in this verse also, they don't care that Krishna is God. They might know that that is God, as indicated in other pastimes, but the first and foremost thing is that Krishna is our friend. Krishna is our beloved. Krishna is my son. Now, this is also indicated in other pastimes. For example, the pastime where Mother Yashoda looks into Krishna's mouth. Now, Balaram and the coward boys tattletaled on Krishna that he's eating dirt. And Mother Yashoda came to Krishna and said, "Are you eating dirt?" And he said, "No." And she said, "Let me look into your mouth." And when she looked into his mouth, she saw all the planetary systems. She saw so many forests and worlds and all kinds of things. And she was really astonished by this. And then after that, the Yogamaya potency, or the potency of, the covering potency in the spiritual world, covered over her and made her think, okay, he might be something, but actually, I love him because he is my son. Let's read a little bit from the 10th canto about this exact verse. Let's find it here. Okay, I don't have it here. But anyways, that's the point. Another pastime was that Krishna fearing the stick of Mother Yashoda, or the pastime where Krishna was running from Mother Yashoda in fear, as we know from the Damodar Leela. Now, this is such a special and unique aspect of the Supreme that is not described anywhere but in in our tradition, that Krishna, that God, forgetting his godliness, Krishna forgetting, or even not even disregarding that he is the Supreme Lord. Krishna, what Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna, I'm not sure if he said this, but Krishna at home. Who is Vrindavan Krishna? Krishna is Krishna at home. He doesn't have his four hands. He's not managing anything. All he's doing is enjoying. And that's who God is. God is not, there is, of course, aspects of God. We know that different aspects are the Paramatma, the localized aspect, Brahman, the all-pervading aspect, and then Bhagavan, the highest, the aspect of God, of personality of Godhead. But that personality of Godhead, what is he doing? He is in the spiritual world, enjoying himself, enjoying the residents of Vrindavan, and they are enjoying his presence as well. But the point being that the pure devotees, the unalloyed devotees, unalloyed means that there is no mixture of any other kind of love. There's only pure love. And in that pure love is where they forget that Krishna is God, that he's the supreme Brahman, that he is all pervading, that he is the controller, that he is omniscient. But who do they see him as? They only see him as their beloved. That's what we should strive for also. Of course, there needs to be stages to that. It's not that we jump to the stage of the gopis or the stage of the Nanda and Yashoda, but this is something for us to strive for, that when we perform devotional service, we will uncover this love that we have for Krishna, that relationship we have with Krishna, and that relationship we have is very unique and very special, and will completely satisfy us in all respects. And how is that gain? Is by always striving for the pleasure of Krishna. That's what the residents of Vrindavan always did. What does needs of Krishna have? Not my needs, but what needs Krishna have? I can go to hell. The gopis, when they were asked for their foot dust to cure Krishna's headache, they didn't think, no, we're going to go to hell. They didn't care. They said, take as much as you want. We don't care, as long as Krishna is happy, as long as Krishna is relieved of his headache. Another pastime is that when the cowherd men of Vrindavan approached Nanda Maharaj, that we think your son is the Supreme Lord. Nanda Maharaj thought about it for a while, and he told them that that's really funny that you think that, but if he's the Supreme Lord, why is he scared of thunder when there's a thunderstorm? He comes to me. Why is that? Or any other thing that a child might do in fear and approach his father. I have 3 children, and I'm really getting a real illustration of what it means where a child is fearless because their father is there. Prabhupada said in quite a number of places that the devotee is fearless like the child who knows my father is always there, therefore I'm not fearful. There's always this parent-child example given in different aspects, like in our chanting also. It's said that we should chant in a way that it's like crying for the baby for its mother. We have a 5-month-old daughter, and she has different cries. There's certain cry, where she's laying down on the bed and she's crying maybe, oh, not so, but then there's a certain cry where Tulsi, my wife, okay, she gets up and goes there. So that's a certain cry that we should have for Krishna when we're chanting. That's another side point. Anyway, in the interest of time, so there's the first point was fearlessness that I wanted to bring out as a theme. The second was the residents of Vrindavan don't care if Krishna is God, because first and foremost, there is beloved, and that's what we should strive towards. And then the third theme I wanted to talk about was the daily realigning of our motivations in Krishna consciousness. Because how does that theme come out in this verse is that Srila Prabhupada talks about in his commentary in the Krishna book that people do not know about the spiritual world and what is beyond this world. And so, like I said earlier, sometimes I find myself when I'm absorbed in something that's not exactly directly Krishna conscious activity, I might forget Krishna or things like that. So that's like in a more micro way, but in a more macro way, our Krishna consciousness needs to be daily reinvented or re-examined, I would say, of what our motivations are. Why are we doing the things that we are doing? We have to keep on reminding ourselves that this reality that we are living in is actually not reality. There's so much more of a reality in the spiritual world. All these things that we're reading, all these pastimes that we're reading about, this is actually the news that we should be absorbed in, not the news of this world. The news of this world is always going to be coming and going, up and down, this and that. This person did this and that person did that, and this disease came and that disease came and these persons were killed, and et cetera, goes on ad infinitum. But what is the actual news that we should be concerned about? Nanda Maharaj got captured by Varuna. Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill. The coward boys were under distress and with a forest fire, and Krishna saved them. This is the actual news that we should be considering. And why is that? Because there's so many lessons to be learned about Krishna consciousness within these pastimes. And not just that the pastimes are lessons, but within themselves, they are transcendental. These are Shravanam, these are the leelas of the Lord, eternal leelas of the Lord that we should always be thinking about to purify our consciousness, because these are the things that are eternal and will not be changing, and what will be changing and will be bringing our consciousness down is the news of this world. So again, realigning our motivations in Krishna consciousness. I went on a bit of a tangent there, but realigning our motivation. Why do we do the things that we do? Is it because that we want to fit in? Is it because we want to belong somewhere? Is it because we want, something else other than I want to serve Krishna, I want to serve the devotees because I know that makes Krishna happy. I know that will please, that's my eternal nature. That is what I'm meant to do. As Prabhupada says, that's my constitutional position. Or is it because we have some other motivation? So realigning ourselves with our motivations on a daily basis, that I want to what am I striving for? We see so many motivational speakers these days talking about how to motivate yourself to do, to working out or to making money or things like that. So we should think of the morning Srimad Bhagavatam class, the evening Bhagavad Gita class, any kind of reading we might do, spiritual activities as motivation to realign ourselves for what our purpose is. And our purpose being that I want to please Krishna, I want to please my spiritual master, and I want to do what I'm meant to be doing, just like the hand, the hand wants to, if the hand wants to enjoy separately from the body, it cannot enjoy separately. But when the hand gives food to the mouth and that food goes to the stomach, and then the stomach spreads that nourishment throughout the body, is when the hand can feel that, okay, my purpose is done. Or the other kind of example that's given of the tree, that we don't water the leaves, we water the root of the tree. And with that, the whole tree is satisfied and satiated. So just to recap, fearlessness in this pastime, Nanda Maharaj called out for Krishna. We should also have this kind of fearlessness. And how do we have that? By practicing Bhakti Yoga. Second theme, residents of Vrindavan do not care if Krishna is God. They care that he is their beloved. We should also try to have this, strive for this conception. And third is the daily realigning of our motivations, that this reality that we live in is not actually reality. Reality is in the spiritual world that we should strive to be a part of. Hare Krishna. If anyone has any questions or comments. Yes, Adipush Prabhu.
Well, brilliant class, fantastic. And we love the analogies that you bring in by your own experience that Krishna's giving you with your children. Very sweet and clarifying. We were reading recently in the Bhagavatam that unless we surrender to Krishna, we cannot be fearless and we can't be loving. That because the protection, like you were talking about, doesn't always manifest the way we might prefer, the way we might understand, the way we might expect. That Krishna's protection. But when we say, Lord, I'm yours, whether you handle me roughly by your embrace, whatever you want, I'm yours. Just like Prabhupada always gives that analogy. The kitten is being held in the cat's mouth.
Right.
Mother cat suspends the kitten by the scruff of the neck, and the kitten is being carried through situations, has no control of where it's going, but it's relaxed. My mother is bringing me someplace good, which is ultimately, okay. So there's no worry. And then it says, Sarvadhamma Pratya, surrender to Krishna, do not worry, do not fear, do not hesitate, do not worry. And Dhanadhar Maharaj gives a superlative class about fear is not necessary, worry is not necessary. And then he says, worry is ridiculous. Which is like, oh, I'm ridiculous. Worry is because I'm thinking the more worried I get, the more I'll get done what has to be done. Worry is not necessary, then worry is ridiculous. Then he says, worry is insanity. That killed me. Worry, and then he says, worry is sinful. My God. And then worry is offensive to the Lord because we think Krishna doesn't know what he's doing. So we've mentioned this so many times, but it's really an interesting getting deeper and deeper into the fact that this worryiness business is just a bad habit. And it's like, has nothing to do with reality. It reminds me when I was a kid that my father, when I first used to drive with him, I would like stand up on the front seat and kind of tuck myself behind his right shoulder while he was driving. And then at one point he got this little car seat. You ever see those car seats? And the kid it's suspended on the back of the seat, and then you sit in the car seat. And my car seat had a little steering wheel, because my father saw that sometimes he would let me kind of sit on his lap and help with the steering. But I was in that car seat maybe just a few minutes. I was really fired up. I got my own steering wheel. It's got a little red button here, But then I realized at one point, I can remember how ridiculous I felt, that this wheel has nothing to do with where the car is going. No matter which way I turn, it's just a piece of plastic. But that's our position, that, we think we might be in control, but actually Krishna's in control, and we're safe in his arms.
Yes.
Which Krishna loves us. All glories to Prabhupada. Maybe I talk too much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Things will be okay in the end. And if things are not okay, then it's not the end. That's what someone told me.
Okay.
I like that a lot. Yeah, worrying is not a good habit, definitely. But I mean, we all do it. It's just our conditioning.
Conditioning. Yeah.
Anyone have any other questions or comments? Nothing? Okay.
You mentioned the importance of hearing and realigning, right?
Yes.
Can you hear me? So we hear about how wonderful is Krishna. We hear about Krishna's in control. We hear about Krishna's our friend. And we hear we're supposed to please Krishna. That's the peace formula given in the Bhagavad Gita, right? And so that's very interesting to remember those three things. And by realigning with the reality, then we can become fearless.
Mhm.
That there's no problem.
Definitely.
How wonderful is Krishna?
How wonderful is Krishna? Great. Okay. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your morning. And hopefully a very Krishna conscious day with whatever you're doing. Should we end there? It's almost a few minutes until the conch is at 8, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Namras Prabhu, let's see, let's call somebody out.
Yeah.
Let's pick out the most introverted person on the call and call them out. Okay, Scarlett, your camera is on. You're on the spot. What's your reflection? What did you like? Or not like? Do you have any corrections? Yes, you, Scarlett. Yes. We want to hear a reflection from you. But no?
Yeah, I'll offer reflections with Ananda Manjari, Devi Dasi.
Ananda Manjari, thank you.
I found actually a very touching point that she mentioned is, I forgot who you were mentioning, but the person who is striving to care for his family and then just shifts that statement saying, well, oh Lord, this is actually your family. This is your household. I'm just a servant in your own household.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that.
Thakur. And I also thought about the power that comes from seeing and knowing that, like, of course, we know of his life and that his endeavors were just like full on, very expansive. And to know that he was putting so much of his energy, of his life, like essentially his whole life, to serve the Lord, and simultaneously also come back to this consciousness of, at the end, I'm not doing that. It's actually the Lord maintaining it, and to just come back to this faith at the end. I just find it to be extremely potent. And I also wonder if you would like to speak a little bit about that seeming dichotomy, but not really, of just like finding so much power and like almost zealousness to carry out services and simultaneously really relieve ourselves of the worry, realizing we're truly just not in control of anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does seem a little bit of a dichotomy, doesn't it? I mean, we do have effort that we can give. It's not that we don't have control over our actions and things. We do have some control. So what do we use that control for? Is to focus on, do we use it for focusing on spiritual activities, or do we focus it on sense gratification or selfish activities? So in that way, we can use our energy for service and for bhakti, devotional service. So that's what I would say, is that there is a little bit of control, free will that we do have to decide, okay, I can do that, I can go in this direction or this direction. And when we do go in the direction of Krishna, he gives us a lot of, as it says, when you step towards Krishna, he steps 10, 100 steps towards you. So we'll see that presence, we'll feel that presence in our life when we do put effort in that direction.
Thank you, Namras Prabhu. Thank you, Nanda Manjari. Scarlett?
Yes, Hare Krishna. Thank you for today's class. I have I'm new in this movement, and I'm not initiated yet. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to read all that I can and follow the principle and everything. But there's something today, for instance, I read something in the chat. Worry is it's sinful. To be worried is sinful. But then, if I can explain from my side, I have been through many things in my life, and it's so much.
Scarlett, I think we got your question. Namras Prabhu, would you like to stay for a few minutes after the darshan to answer the question?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, it's darshan time. Turn on your cameras if you can. Let's take darshan, and then Namras will take on the question. Very nice question, Scarlett.
Govinda Adi Purusham Namaham Jami Govinda Adi Purusham.
Okay, welcome to the Afterglow. Namras Prabhu, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Scarlett to maybe talk, repeat the second part, because I know you were talking about the statement of worry is sinful. And then what was the second part of the question?
For me, sometimes I get worried. Sometimes it's unknowing. So how come we do this also is sinful? Because I have studied very much that it's even if unknowing, even that is bad. I have learned.
Right.
And that makes me worry.
Yeah. So what I would say is that, okay, that's a phrase. I wouldn't say that it's directly sinful in the sense of, like, if you're not following the regulative principle, like if you're eating meat, if you're taking intoxication or something. That's sinful. But I would
I'm
say,
sorry, I don't put any meat. I really, really, really live by the four principles. I
right,
don't eat
right,
the only
right.
thing is my worrying for the next time. I don't want to be born again. That is what my situation.
Right.
I don't want to be born again. And my
Well-
worry is that I don't, maybe it's not enough. Everything what I it's not enough and I'm going to be born again. That is my worry. Not that I want to eat meat and I'm worried. No. Not that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would say that the reason that worry is sinful per se is that it's a failure to trust Krishna and to trust his goodness, and to a failure to believe in what he says, which is do not fear. It says in the Bhagavad Gita. So in that way, I would say it is something that's, I wouldn't say that it's sinful because that's such a loaded word. I would say it's like a very powerful word, but I would say it's something that doesn't help us. It doesn't help you to worry. It doesn't help you to worry because you should believe in Krishna's goodness. You should believe in his word. You should believe that he is someone to be trusted. And in that way, and you said it's kind of unknowing. It's like kind of subconsciously you might worry. Yes, of course, we all do that. But the more you practice, the more you chant. This is very important to chant. The more you chant and the more you're in kirtan, the more you chant Hare Krishna. This is what purifies us of these, it purifies our mind, it purifies our heart of these different subconscious things that we might do. So, we talk about, it's very cliched sometimes, we talk about, cleaning the heart, cleaning the mind, but actually it is doing that. We see devotees who have done that for years and years, and we see what kind of life they live, full of fearlessness. And so we should strive to have that. And we could do that today. If you chant with a lot of absorption, you will feel the effects of that immediately. So that's what I would say about the subconscious thing.
I wanted
Thank you,
to
ma'am.
add to it because what came to my mind also just now is just the 10 offenses to the holy name, and how one of them is to actually like not really trust the potency of the holy name, to like continue to chant and not trust the potency and not trust that shelter that the
Yes.
holy name provides. And in that way, like I would say that offense is like can be almost synonymous with sin. And
Yeah.
that just kind of brought it home for me right now, just realizing that sin is nothing else that's just a misdirection of energy that takes us away from coming closer to God, and that's what offense is.
Definitely, great point.
Thank you very much, Namras Prabhu.
Hare
Thanks
Krishna.
everyone for participating. Wonderful class. I was thinking, I'm so grateful that I was born and I got to know Adi and Namras and all of you, dear devotees. I got to participate in class every day. I can take another birth. If I'm with devotees, I don't mind. Namras Prabhu, where do you think Srila Prabhupada is now?
Serving.
Is he in spiritual world?
Yes, he's in the spiritual world. Definitely.
Or maybe he's somewhere preaching, somewhere on an earthly planet preaching.
Simultaneously, they can be those Nitya Siddhas, or the eternally liberated souls. They can be simultaneously in different places, in different leelas. Gaur Leela, Krishna Leela, preaching Acharya Leela. They can be there as well. So
Nice.
but I
answering
loved
that.
your point about birth after birth. We want to be amongst devotees. It says in that song Nam Sankirtan, Bhakta Sanevas, Janame Janame Hoy E Abhilas. Bhakta Sanevas, in the company of bhaktas, in the company of devotees, Janame Janame, birth after birth, E Abhilas. That's the desire that I have. So you said it perfectly.
Thank you, Namras Prabhu. Thanks for answering addressing that dichotomy for me. I was thinking, is Prabhupada preaching or he's chasing gopis? It's both. It's both, Namras Prabhu. Thank you. Bhakti is not either or, Bhakti is both.
Yes, a lot of gray area.
Yeah. Okay, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Have
Krishna.
a wonderful day. Thanks for realigning us with Krishna Namaras Prabhu. We look forward to your class next month. Hopefully.
Haribo. Sorry,
Okay,
thank you
Hare
for giving me a
Krishna.
chance. Haribo.
Hare Krishna.